Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 620. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of You-Know, the Sultan of Strategery, the indestructible bridge-defying, has heard a scary rumor that Sean refers to him as the Chantal of the show, and the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to be talking about Action Comics 1036 and Superman Son of Kal-El, number 5. We are proudly sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have a Superman and Robin special one-shot. So once again, we're bringing back the Super Sons, written by Peter J. Tomasi, 40% off, only $3.59. Awesome. Plus, Superman, Son of Kal-El, issue number 5 is on its second printing. So once again, pick it up, 40% off, $2.39. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, they have some great new releases. Batman by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo Omnibus Hardcover. $125 regularly, 45% off, only $68.75. I want to shout this out. Geiger was mentioned on our last episode in our phone call. And Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, the Geiger trade paperback is $9.99 regularly. 42% off, only $5.79. Sandman, the deluxe edition hardcover, book 4. $49.99 regularly, 45% off, only $27.49. I am reading these right now, these deluxe edition hardcovers of the Sandman. Oh my gosh. It's clear that series I can read over and over again. These deluxe editions are immaculate, really well put together. So I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Through the magic alchemy of nature's most awesome sources of energy, Ray Palmer, atomic physicist, becomes the atom.
Our first discussion this episode is going to be of Action Comics 1036, War World Saga, Part 1. Philip Kennedy Johnson is the writer. Daniel Sampere is the artist. Adriano Lucas on colors. Dave Sharp on letters. Daniel Sampere and Alex Sinclair on cover. Julian Totino Tedesco on the variant cover. Diego Lopez, associate editor. Mike Cotton, editor. Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. Superboy created by Jerry Siegel. Supergirl based on characters created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster by special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. So first of all, I want to apologize for any name butchery. I was so excited for this, and I've got to be honest, the build-up to this one, I got a little confused. And what I mean, I want to clarify. There was the offshoot miniseries with Superman and the Authority, and I didn't realize, I must have read things out of order and didn't realize it was connected to this. Then as I got through to issue 4 and then the Batman and Superman special, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this is all part of the same thing, which was great. I actually really, and I'm referencing that because if you haven't read the Superman and the Authority miniseries and the Batman Superman Authority special, do so, because they really make for a nice build towards this. It's not like one of those, oh my gosh, you're going to be so lost if you don't read it kind of things, but it, like any good epic story like this, it fleshes it out and adds like just more to this whole thing in a way that I really, really love this. I didn't realize that, I guess I was so focused on Future State and what I thought this was going to be that I didn't realize that, wow, because Future State isn't set in stone, now there's more to the story.
Yes, yeah.
And I love it. I love it. This feels like this is the first part, and it feels so epic.
Dude, it's funny. I was in the same boat as you have with how reading Superman and the Authority completely, everything you were saying, I'm 100% echoing on you. And I'll also go further, say that if you're not regularly reading the Superman Batman, you can pick up that one shot kind of, the one story. And you're not lost. It's all part of the Warworld saga. It's all part of the Superman, the Authority saga. It's all interconnected. So even like you, I read all this stuff out of order. And it was kind of neat because after reading, like, oh, okay, now that, oh, yeah. And it's one of those, now you know the rest of the story type of deals where if you don't read it, you're not lost. But if you read it, then you got a little bit more. You see the buildup of the team. You see the creation. You see why, I love the Batman-Superman moments, that we got in the Superman-Batman Authority one-shot. That was there's some really cool Clark and Bruce moments in there, and just the general nature of this team. And I am doing air quotes around it because the Authority is still building. They're still becoming a team, in this. And I like it. I like how this story is playing out. It has, I was a huge fan of the Future State, and now we're, again, just like how we have Future State Gotham, things are a little bit different than what they said it was going to be. Future State Superman is going to be a little bit different. And I want to see where this goes compares to what we saw in the actual Future State miniseries. I'm really looking forward to this story. It's one of those where this is a cool, neat adventure going on right now.
Well, here's what Future State's doing. It's giving you this sense of dread because you got to see this horrible potential for it. And then you get to see, is the future set in stone? Is it possible to change it? And we're seeing hope, in that. But yet the danger, because of what we've already read, is so high. I love the way that this has all been set up. Because you're rooting, I feel like I'm rooting for our heroes. And the fact that he's there with the Authority, with this version of the Authority is different. And at least from what I remember from Future State. And there's ways that this is playing out that already feel different, but yet the danger through the roof. By the way, I want to once again shout out apologies for the artwork, in the sense that I know I did some name butchery there, and this artwork is phenomenal. The opening page where you're looking at this artwork on Derlin, and you get to see this fantastical world that's been crafted. I love the character models. I love the background artwork. It's this fantasy world that gives you this sense of Planet Durla, this sense of wonder. And it's something that I love when you get to see it. I got to admit, I know I've seen this artist's name before. This is I'm starting to get to know this artist, particularly from this issue, where I'm like, oh, this is somebody who really needs to be on my radar. Because this is beautiful. It's really a gorgeous book. And it stood out to me as being just a unique art style and it kind of harkens back to a lot of the stuff I grew up with, where I really found some of these artists that were making me go, wow, there's a pop to that. And the color work is really critical to this as well. This is a great art team that's developing it. But my gosh, the character models on Durla are just... It makes me believe this is a living, breathing, different planet that I would love to walk through. You feel like it has these magical neon lights, and it feels like an other world. Whereas sometimes alien planets feel kind of generic. This is the opposite of that, from creatures that are on the planet to the costumes to even the characterizations. I mentioned the character models. Their expression of emotion feels different than a human would in how it expresses itself, and I really loved that. I mean, it's something that really stood out in this.
Oh, God, yeah. And I'll tell you, let me add to what you're saying, because, again, completely echoing everything you're saying about how beautiful the artwork. This is one of those great art and a great creative team working together. And everything you're saying, how it has that mystical kind of look, it has that otherworldly kind of feel to it. And I was like, I completely agree with you. I thought that was kind of cool, and how everything was going through. And I loved how everything was nice and calm with the Lord Premier. And he was like, oh, come sit, my friend. until the moment they mention the Philosians. The second he mentions them, that completely changes everything. And you see just this dramatic anger and rage, and no, we are doing nothing with them. And even to the point where he insults the guy's mother, who, like, a page before was talking about how your sweet mother, and now it's your sow mother. I love just that flip of the switch. And again, it wasn't just words, it wasn't just dialogue, it was art styling, it was coloring, it was just the layout, it was just how they completely, sold us on just this pure hatred and rage that he has for this group of people that really lays down the groundwork on why the United Planets doesn't help Superman at War. Why, they're not going to go in on and to take down Warworld and free all these slaves. This 100% right there shows it to you. And it was a great pivotal moment that I was like, man, this was one of those story-wise, art-wise, lettering-wise, everything really did a great job. I was like, man, that's cool.
The Secret of the Philosians, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing them right, or Philosians, or I'm not quite sure what the proper pronunciation is, but that piece, there's more to this story that's going to be unfolding here, and I'm really, really curious to see what it is, because, boy, he's so peaceful and calm until that name comes in, and then he turns all violent. And I loved that opening of this. We've seen these characters already. We've seen this group of people already, and we know that Superman is going to rescue them. What is the story? Who else knew? And what does this mean for Superman? And I love that unfolding mystery. This is called a saga for a reason, and it feels big. And there's something... It's been a while since I've read a story that isn't Batman-based, that has this kind of feel. And I applaud DC for allowing this story to go forward. I don't know how this got pitched. I don't know what led to this. But this feels like what I've always loved about some of the bigger Legion stories and things like that, where you've got this idea of this sci-fi epic that even saying that kind of feels, I don't want to say it feels limiting, because my opinion is science fiction at its best is able to tell any kind of story. But I don't want to pigeonhole this into like one category, because this just feels like exactly what saga implies. This is going to be a big, big story. And there's something about introducing that right from the get-go. What a team. Enchantress, OMAC, Lightray, Apollo, Midnighter, Steel, Manchester Black. I mean, this is a mishmash of characters that I would never have put together in a million years, and I love it. I absolutely, I hope out of this team stays together in some capacity, and which is a crazy thing to say so early on, but we said this after the miniseries, that when we thought it was, you and I were talking about that miniseries, and I think we were thinking this is like an Elseworlds thing or a future thing or something like that, not realizing, no, this is a precursor to this.
Dude, man, I completely agree with you. I want this Authority to stick around. Mm-hmm. And again, having them with Superman makes things even better for me. Mm-hmm. But even if he wasn't in the picture, I would pick up an Authority book if this was the Authority, especially with this creative team, because I do like his writing for them. So it's funny because I keep calling Manchester Black Malachi Black, and but he's one of those characters,
I'm going to say, I don't know that you're that far off.
No, I don't think we're that far off of that guy. But he's one of those characters that throughout this has been, I don't want to say my sleeper surprise, but because the other characters, I'm like, yeah, I absolutely love Steel. She's awesome. I think that's a wonderful addition. And, Midnighter and Apollo have always been my go-to guys. And Lightray and OMAC seem pretty cool. But Manchester, is one of those characters that anytime he's been around, I've always thought he was an interesting character, but he was never anybody that I wanted around. I kind of saw him as a poor man's Constantine, and I didn't get like a groove that really made me say, yeah, this is Manchester Black. But they're really doing a good job with me and giving me like kind of a feel and a groove to him and an actual following of him. Where to the point where I'm like, I like him on this team. I want to see them work together. I want to see the Authority win. I want to see him stay on the Authority. It's, every one of these characters I'm getting a connection to. And it's funny because part of it is because Superman is on the team. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But it's one of those things where if a good creative team has an introduction and a way to bring people in, but doesn't short sell the other characters, it really does, give you a connection to them. And there's some really cool moments on this team where even if it's just little simple stuff, but they take the time to get us to understand who these people are, what their groove is, what they're about. And it gives you that personal connection to it. And that's one of the things I'm loving the most about all of this Superman, Authority, Warworld saga, all this stuff going on is giving me a chance to get to know these other characters and get an emotional connection to them. This is one of those ones where they kill off any of these team members, I will be upset. It will affect me because I'm getting a connection to them and I'm looking down the waves some neat stories we can have.
Yeah, and that's any great stories should start doing that. It's kind of funny. I'm torn on whether I want, after this, Clark to go back to the Justice League or stay with the Authority now, because I like this team so much. And I know you're not saying this. For me, what I love about this Authority is that Clark's there. I actually want Clark on that team. Yeah. It's such a neat mishmash of characters, and I think what pulls them all together is Superman. I actually like it's weird. I like Superman and Apollo on the same team, which is something it's kind of like normally that would seem like a redundancy, but yet I really enjoyed Superman and Black Adam on the same team.
Right.
I kind of want John to be on the Justice League and Clark to be on the Authority. Although, whatever, in DC I'll trust right now because these writers are just hitting it out of the park. I'm super excited. Like, this has been a great couple months of reading, and this Superman, the series of Superman books that are out right now have been a huge part of that for me. I'm really high on what they're doing with the Superman titles.
Oh, big time. And I'll tell you, I would love to see Superman stay on the Authority and have it be Superman and the Authority, or even just call them the Authority, or however they want to do it. I'm all in on that. Mm-hmm. Only thing I would like to see is I want to see Lois and Clark back together again.
Yes.
And I would love to see Lois leave Earth to join Superman and the Authority. And she and Clark working together on the Authority with the team. I think that would be a really cool story combo. Because, again, I always want Lois and Clark together, just because I like them as a couple. I think they're awesome together, and I think John's, John to me is now Superman. I 100% when I say Superman, I'm talking John now, and I'd like to see John have, Earth and him on the Justice League and him doing, him being the Superman of Earth, and having Clark be an intergalactic Superman. Or with the Authority, or some type of other role for Clark Kent. Yeah, I don't want to get rid of Clark Kent. I love Clark. He's a great character, and they have some really awesome Clark moments. It's like you think about it, when they first arrive on World War, and everyone's like just looking at the drama and just the violence, and then Clark goes and visits goes and sees one of the people. One of the leaders who's basically just sitting up there in outer space, and it's paying his respects to this man who died. And I love how Manchester's like, there's millions of living slaves. Why does he one nameless corpse? And Larry's like, I'd like to know what that's like to care so much about everyone. And to me, that's a great Superman statement, that he cares about everyone. Some nameless corpse that's just body is being displayed in orbit around World War. That affects Clark. That's the kind of stuff that makes him Superman. I love these sequences.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like that John's name has graduated to Superman. I'm all for it. I'm not against that at all. It's kind of like what's going on with Jace. I don't want Bruce to be renamed because Jace is going by Batman. I'm okay with that. We've seen that before with Dick Grayson, and I was fine with that then. I'm glad Dick Grayson went back to Nightwing And it's funny with Jace, I'm a lot more open to the idea of maybe Jace staying as a Batman. And just because it's interesting with Dick Grayson, I think the Nightwing identity has so been well established and fleshed out that I don't think Dick Grayson needs to be Batman.
Right.
You know, I mean, there's not like a graduating to Batman. It's Nightwing already is his own top tier character. So I don't need that from the character. It's an interesting sort of different thing with Jace where because it's such a different concept, I'm a lot more open-minded to seeing, are they going to keep Jace Batman? Is Jace going to eventually get his own identity? I do not want to at some point in time see Bruce Wayne hang up the mantle. It's if you're going to do that, I would like what they've done with like Batman Beyond where it's, you know, years in the future when Bruce does, his body no longer can handle it. I'm not ready to give him up as Batman yet, though. But that's not I don't feel this choice that I need to have to choose between Jace and Bruce. I love Jace's book, and I love following him as a character. So keep him Batman as long as they want to, and if that's going to be an ongoing thing, I'm completely cool with it. Kind of like what you're talking about with John. I don't know what they're going to do with John. If they're going to keep John Superman indefinitely or permanently, or you know what the intention is. Completely cool with it. I don't necessarily want to see Clark be renamed. I love Clark as Superman. And I don't think that it's kind of like Barry being the Flash and Wally being the Flash. That just kind of works for me.
Yeah.
So it's go with it. It's kind of one of those things. There's two people named Superman, and yay. It's this. I like both characters so much and what they're doing. I think it's great. I'm with you that I want Clark and Lois have got to wind up back together at some point. I don't need it now because I like how they're using Lois now so much in John's book, and it makes sense for this story that, yeah, why on earth would Clark bring Lois to Warworld? I mean, that would be ridiculous. And that's not an insult to Lois. Where you're going is a completely, lack of a better way, it's a completely different planet. But this concept, he knows how dangerous where he's going is. I was glad to see that in this particular scenario that Lois wouldn't be urging to go along with this. It wouldn't make sense. She'd be a liability. That's a strange thing to say with Lois Lane. But in this particular story, I think the team that he's taking with him is there for a reason. I think they're there as a strike force to be able to go in, and I think there's a reason that you've got people like Midnighter and Apollo and Manchester Black who aren't afraid to cross lines, Enchantress, who's got a wicked side about her. There's some characters there, and in a way, Steel being the heart. OMAC, I'm kind of wrapping my head around on still, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I actually like that there's some characters on there, like OMAC, this OMAC, I'm not really as familiar with. I want to get to know this character more. Steel, I love her, and in some ways, Superman needs somebody who's kind of grounded to who he's always been when he's got this cast of characters who are so different from the teams that he's usually surrounded himself with. I think her being there kind of grounds the team in a weird way, if I'm making any sense at all.
No, it makes perfect sense. I agree. Like, Steel, to me, has always been, whether it's John Henry Irons or whether it's his daughter, has always been a heart and soul of what makes Superman Superman. But also adds to it, you add to it her intelligence, her tech side, all that kind of stuff is something you would need going into World. So she was, again, one of those great connections. I think that was a good selection. And OMAC, I see OMAC as kind of like the tank of the team.
I do too.
Clark's powers, he recognizes, hey, my powers are decreased. I need a powerhouse. And that's where OMAC comes in. And like Midnighter and Apollo, those two, again, they're a great tag team. Those two work well together, but also Midnighter has his strengths. Apollo has his power levels. So these two work well together. And it's, again, it's one of those things where you're picking each one of them. It's kind of like part of Clark's own power set. Each one of these heroes has Clark's power set. You've got the speed, you've got the power, you've got the heart, you've got the strength. Enchantress, the mystical powers because they're going to need it because they're going up against magic, and then Manchester Black is, Manchester Black, he's that nice little extra X factor that adds to the team. So when I look at the team, I look as Clark picked the different people who would represent his powers that are waning. So instead of him flying in solo, he still has his same kind of power set, coming into this. And again, that was one of the neat things that multiple read-throughs, and reading the Superman and the Authority, reading the Batman Authority, series, you kind of see where Clark's relying on the different people, how he's relying on them. And it was a neat little, oh, okay, kind of moment. So, yeah, I've said it at the beginning, I'm going to keep saying this throughout this. I love this team. I absolutely love it.
I'm hoping Clark gets his powers back out of this in some capacity. Not that it's like a deal breaker for me. It's not. He's Superman, and I want to see that. I love this story. Don't get me wrong, and I want there to be some resolution that gives him his powers back. Depowered Clark is not any less interesting to me. I've read Depowered Clark before,
yep. And
I think there's a storytelling reason for this. I want the end resolution for him to be back to dun-da-da, I want him to kind of be the guy that saves the day. I love everything you're saying about this team, and I was nodding along as you were explaining, kind of how you see this team and how they help Superman in so many ways. I love that aspect of this team. I think it's a very strong team. We've seen the Mongol stories before and Warworld before. This is a new Mongol, and he who controls the chains, or I forget, I'm poorly paraphrasing what it is, but this idea of the chains and how he's made them a symbol for them of strength, but uses that as a control. It's a way of gradually breaking them into subservience to being his army of sorts, to do his bidding. And army's not the right word, because they're so, with them being gladiators on Warworld and what they do, they're so far beyond that. But it really is about control and power, and it's as psychological as it is physical. And that part of this story really makes him a strong, scary villain. And it's been a while since we've seen a villain that has a unique flavor in the Superman universe that feels like this, where it feels this epic. I think Bendis did a great job of creating some new villains during his run that I thought, had that kind of flavor to it. But this is going back to, I think, the core of Superman with Mongol. Mongol. And yeah. I think taking that concept and giving it a fresh coat of wax, kind of like we've seen with the Bat books, right? With Joker and with characters like that, where the games, and Scarecrow recently, my gosh, talk about a character that's been kicked up to 11. I think we're doing that here. You feel like Superman alone can't take care of Mongol. And it's not just about the fact that he's depowered. There's more to it than that. When you see this sequence, the horror and shock of it is just amazing.
Well, I'll tell you, I've never really read a Mongol Warworld story where it really did break down Mongol, and it really did break down what is Warworld. To me, I always thought Warworld as just a giant gladiator arena combat thing. I didn't really look at it. It didn't have as much deep levels as this story has. And that's something that I'm absolutely loving about this. The fact that Mongol is, it's basically a title that son takes over after he kills his father. And it's been going on down the line, where every Mongol has killed, every child has killed the father and assumed the title, and continued running Warworld. It's not just, and I love this, that basic concept, but even just these inner factions of these wars. And everything you went in when you said about the chains it's absolutely brilliant, because you think about just various cults and various various organizations like that, where it's you break down the person and you bring them back up, in your complete servitude. And it's always each one of these different, whether you call it a cult, whether you call it an organization, religion, club, whatever terminology you want to give it, they all follow the same basic principle, where it's you break it down and then you rebuild them back up. And when you rebuild them back up, they have that loyalty to you because you are building them up. They forget the fact that you're the one who beat them down. So they forget the fact that it's Mongol and his associates who took them from their worlds, who beat them down, who tortured them, who did all these horrific things. They only start remembering that it's Mongol who's giving them the resources back, who's giving them strength. And every time they put another link on the chain, you're doing much better. They're giving them those encouragement and that positive reinforcement. And they forget the fact that this monster is the one who destroyed them first. They only remember the current stuff. And that's what builds that loyalty. And I love seeing that really laid out in this, in this story, in this series that we've been getting on Warworld, on why Warworld is so, to be honest, successful, and why Mongol's able to control this entire planet of violence and chaos. Because, one, he's keeping the different warring factions fighting. He's keeping them down. But then he gives them these little rewards and these little things that, getting that loyalty to them. Then he shows a flash of power and respect. So they're like, okay, we're not going to mess with Mongol. He's really tough. It's this multiple layers of, the psychological and physical warfare that he's laying on his people to keep them in line. It's absolutely brilliant. And I don't ever remember reading a story like this about Warworld, about Mongol. So he's now a villain that I'm like, this is a cool character. I want more of these stories.
Yeah, I do too. It's the nice part about epics like this is they wind up being the stories that when they're collected, you reread again and again.
Yes.
Because of the fact that they're stories that have a pivotal impact. This graveyard that's been strewn into a road. I mean, it's a road. It literally is a road path that you're seeing there of bodies with his symbol. The whole thing says, so say the dead, the text that's on them. This is all about a prophecy of Superman arriving there, Superman being the champion to come and challenge Mongol. He's being baited into what he knows is a trap. And he's done everything he can to set himself up with some tools that hopefully will give him an advantage in something. I mean, he knows he's walking right into danger. He and Lois discussed this. That says something. When you know your powers, and we've seen this in previous issues, we know his powers are slowly diminishing. We don't know to what extent that's going to go and when that's going to happen and what all that looks like. He's walking into this knowing that's going on with him and playing a chess game that he has to play in his mind because of what he stands for and who he is. This is the pivotal this is what it means to read a real Superman story. Superman is doing what Superman does because this is who he is. And we've seen him make some serious decisions recently that have reflected that in just a very different way. And it made the Justice League have to distance themselves from him.
Yep.
Which is interesting. What did you think about that? We actually, didn't have a chance to talk about that. That happened in a previous issue where Superman had to make a choice and that distanced himself from the Justice League, where it was a decision between Atlantis, between world powers, United States, just everybody. And the spotlight was on him, and he made the stand and basically said, no, this stops here. Right choice, wrong choice? What did you think of it?
One, I absolutely loved it. Again, it was one of those really cool story moments. Mm-hmm. First off, and I loved how it just didn't have that one little impact. It went across the spectrum. It affected Atlantis, it affected the Justice League, it affected the Superman books. One of the reasons the Justice League right now is not with Superman and the Authority is because of what happened. One of the reasons John is not in the Justice League is because of what happened. And again, I always back Superman. He says, I need to do this. I say, yes, it's Superman. I agree with him. But I love the fact that the Justice League said, we can't back you on this. We can't do that. You're no longer in the Justice League. And I loved that. I thought that for me was a great moment. And again, it shows Clark's intelligence. He knew it was coming. He laid the groundwork for when when he's out of the Justice League, there will be powers in place to carry his load. He knew what was going to happen. He, again, it's one of those neat things about him that even though they kicked him out, he still doesn't hate them. He has no anger towards them. He understood why they did it. And he agreed with that they had to do that. And those are some really cool moments about, again, who is Clark? What he's about. He's not just the big blue Boy Scout. He legitimately cares about all these people. You and I, we say we're good people. We'll both, say, that, if someone was in need, we would help. But I don't know about you. I don't go out of my way to help, every little person around me. It's, if I can help somebody, I help them out. But I'm not actively pursuing who can I help today? Who can I save today? Clark does. And that's the thing. We as people, it's something we should try to be like Superman. We should try to actually reach out and help. Not when someone is right in your face saying, "Hey, help me." When can we help? What can we do? And that's the kind of stuff that makes Superman Superman. And it's, you go back to the old, truth, justice, and the American way. Back in the day, that was the American way. That was the founding of what it is to be Superman. I am going to go out of my way to help everybody. And I think that's, it's one of those neat things about who Clark is. And I love seeing that in any book that he's in, the writers get that. Especially currently what we're dealing with here in Action, you really see that Clark is going into flew into a trap, knowing it's a trap, knowing this could be the day I die. And he's standing there proud and standing there tall and saying, "Hey, listen to me, folks. This is not the way to live. You're slavers, you're slaves. You are being held against your will. I will help you. We need to rise up." And it's really cool moment,
The thing that I really love about this is Superman's. Actually, it's funny. The more I've wrapped my head around the change of the slogan, the more I love the idea, because of the fact that I think Superman. It doesn't mean that we're throwing away the idea of truth, justice, and the American way. The problem is not the problem. Well, I guess it is a problem in the sense that he's become a worldwide symbol. And should be a worldwide symbol. The character in and of itself, look at it, stood the test of time. And really, you go at the end of the day, what's great about superheroes? As a storytelling concept and all that, I don't know. As a kid, I'd like to think I'm a better person today because of the fact that I've read some of these books. You know what I mean? And I think that we've had some really cool conversations around morality in all of these titles as we've been going through. And I think that's something that's really unique in comics, with the fact that they can tell any kind of stories. You get that. Superman is one of those types of symbols, and I think nowadays in particular, we need this. We need this character. I really do think so. It's as I'm reading Superman 78, and I'm reading Superman, his kid's book, and I'm reading Supergirl. These characters you really do. There's something to them. I like how different it is than what I'm getting in the Bat family of titles. I like how different it is from Flash and Wonder Woman and everything else that I'm reading. But like Marvel and Independence, and there's something unique about them that they offer that you don't get in any other book, which I think there's a validity to them. I'm so excited that we've got a Superman live-action television show right now. I'm so excited that we're going to be getting an animated series again with Superman. Yes. I like this resurgence of getting that brand out there. And, it's for so long it's been like this DC versus Marvel thing where it's been really popular to... Marvel movies are so much better. Marvel TV shows are so much better, which... I'm going to be honest right now. I'm enjoying so much of the comic book content that's out there across brands, DC, Marvel, and everything else that's been put out there, that I don't know what people are getting crabby about. There's something really for everybody right now. And I'm so excited for what's to come. I just started watching on Disney Plus the other day, Hawkeye, the first 2 episodes. It's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. And my point in bringing that even up in relation to this is we are in this golden age era of the availability of comic content. My one caveat with this is always the same. I want it to lead back to people reading these books. Yeah. Because I want these around I'm glad for all of the extra content elsewhere for brand awareness, because we need that. So the fact that right now, I mean, I watched the first 2 episodes of a Hawkeye series. If you would have told me 10 years ago that we were going to have a Hawkeye television series, I would have laughed.
Yes.
And we have it, and it's great. And I hope we get more of this kind of stuff. So it's because I think it's just making an awareness of how cool this content is. And I do hope it leads back to the books, because we're in this time where I think comic books now more than ever need attention, and we're getting this kind of story. I mean, I'm looking at these pages and I'm turning and seeing, again, the look on Superman's face was shock when we see these bodies strewn, and we see their first rally to get in front of Mongol. We see Chantel for the first time in this particular story, and he hasn't just served this Mongol, he's served multiple Mongols before and has the battle scars and loss of an arm to prove it. Yet he still keeps carrying on.
Loss of arm and 2 legs.
Yeah. I mean, that's insane.
Oh, God, yeah. I'll tell you, he's one of those characters that, as I'm cheering, and just the amount of energy and just the backstory and just the life they're giving the supporting cast of the Authority, they're doing the same thing on the villain side as well. They're giving us that same kind of backstory, that same kind of energy, spending time into it. Again, this is Action Comics, so Superman is your main guy, but they're not going any lightly on any of the other surrounding characters. Chantel is a great example of, they're really laying down what it takes to be a loyal servant of Mongol and how you survive multiple Mongols. I absolutely loved, again, briefly we've seen him, absolutely love this character. Again, he's another one that I'm like, we need more of him. We need more of him in the book, as the story continues. I want to see what happens as the War World Saga goes through. He's one of the characters that I put money on will survive, just because he is a survivor. Now what will that look like in the future? Who knows? But he's one of those characters, again, you got to love that this creative team is taking their time with all these characters. He's not just a insert random villain here. He's an actual character. He's flesh and blood, and you can kind of understand him and get a groove of him. And even just again, beautiful artwork on just how they how they draw him in there. I'm like, man, this is a really cool story.
Yeah. It's the cool part about this story is you also get these great villains where we get to see Mongol's champions come out there, because we've got the Authority, right? So now you can't just have the Authority. You've got to have something more than that. You've got to have a threat besides Mongol. You've got to believe that Superman needed a team. And boy, when you see these champions, man, they're like something out of the Hellraiser movies or something like that. I mean, this is a crazy cast of characters. And the big reveal of Superman, where we get to see for the first time him with the gray hair, and the fact that the jig is up. They knew all along that Superman is not up to snuff. He's not the champion that he's been posing as. For us as readers, I think that makes him look even stronger, the fact that he's there in spite of all this. But wow, we're getting to see some of what we saw in Fear State come to fruition, right? Because that was what he looked like in Future State, I'm sorry. In Future State come to fruition. The concluding sequence with Mongol, the Mongol who was versus now the Mongol who is, it really gives you a sense of he is in for something huge here. This is just the first issue. The build to this is how I remember back Nightfall, the build to Nightfall. You knew it was coming, right? And you kept thinking, I was thinking Asbat's suit was actually Bruce in that suit. That Jean Paul Valley took over for a little bit as Batman in Batman's costume, and that new costume was somehow Bruce, and Bruce needing that costume because of what happened to him. Not realizing that, oh, no, this is going way farther than that. But there was a dramatic build leading up to even the initial issues of Nightfall proper, that was like this, where you knew that a big story was coming, but you didn't quite know where it was going to go in the depth of it. This feels huge. Today, to be able to deliver something that feels this substantial when you have a huge Batman story going on at the same time is really impressive. I mean, this feels like, it's weird to feel like you've got a summer epic now.
Yeah. Oh, big time. And again, the comment of summer epic, they're calling it the World Saga. It's not just an event, it's beyond that. And it has that moment. And I do agree with you completely when we see the gray-haired Superman and then in comes the, Mongol who is. That right there was oh boy. And just like, now you face Mongol who is, and your bones will adore my banner spear for 1,000 years. I'm like, oh, and even next issue is The Reckoning.
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you, this is going to be an awesome story. I am really pumped for this. And then, again, the future state Superman really painted a very bleak picture for what Superman is. We're seeing it now. How much of that comes to pass? Did he not have the authority last time? Did he have the authority and the authority gets wiped off the map? I don't know. I want next issue now, please.
This Guardian and Jimmy Olsen's story that's in the back, The Tales of Metropolis, by Sean Lewis, Sammy Basri, Hi-Fi on colors, Dave Sharp on letters, Diego Lopez as the editor, and Mike Cotton as the senior editor. I love these stories that have been appearing. They were appearing in the Superman title when it was around, and in this title. I love this. I mean, these are really, really good books. They're characters who you wouldn't see otherwise. We've seen this during our tenure doing podcasting. We've seen these attempted in multiple different ways over the years. I've always liked them. It's a great way. Like, when else are you going to get a Guardian featured story? Then you get it in this, and it's really well done. This villain is a cool little premise, a scary little premise, with these kids captured into these shards. It's really this cool techno fear story that was something that I really liked because it felt so different than what's going on in the World Saga story. Like, it was, okay, great, now we had that, and cool, now this fresh, cool Tales of Metropolis story, just another story that you get why, well, neither Superman would be able to be involved in this because of all the other stuff they're involved in. And I think that's really important in this.
Yeah, and again, like you said, I like these little backstories, and it fits that we've got Olsen doing his part, and he's getting other characters, other heroes. We wouldn't get a Guardian story; it wouldn't hold up. Let's be honest. He's a cool character, but I don't think an ongoing series would work. But right here, this layout, this is a great story. This is a little extra something, and again, they could, for you and me, I think. They could take all these little backstories and throw them into one book, and that would be the ongoing story instead of having it in the actual Action Comics or in the actual Superman comic. But I like this. I think this is kind of a neat little extra stuff. So, and again, this was a cool story. I like the character again using the dark web and just again this freakiness of this kid, and this was a cool story. I enjoyed it.
One of the things I like about this is it does what books like DC Comics Presents and Brave and the Bold were able to do, and Marvel Team Up were able to do in the past. Marvel had another book. Was it Marvel Premiere or Marvel Spotlight? They've had Marvel Comics Presents where they've been able to take and have like a lead character story, and then they were able to experiment with some stories with some of their lesser known characters or B and C list characters that I love. I mean, they're really important to the universe. These types of stories are important, and I never want them lost. So I'm very high on these because you're right. You and I would buy a miniseries with Guardian in an instant. We'd buy a one-shot with Guardian instant. This is a great way to have an ongoing platform for this. We're getting this with that Gotham anthology that's currently out in the Batman books. Yeah. I'd love a Superman anthology, but if you're not going to do that, do this. Very cool. This story just stood out to me as just being a lot of fun. I loved the villain. I loved seeing Guardian in this light, and it just something that stood out as a very valid story that I really enjoyed.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look... Great neutron!
Our next discussion is on Superman, Son of Kal-El, issue number 5. Script by Tom Taylor. Art by John Tim. Hi-Fi and color, Dave Sharp letters. John Tim on cover. Ian, I always mispronounce their name. INHYUK Lee. Travis Moore. Tamara Bonvillain on the variant covers. Julian Grant, Diego Lopez, assistant editor, Mike Cotton, editor. Superman, of course, was created by Cleveland's own Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. Superboy also created by Siegel with special arrangement of the Siegel family. And the progressive pride flag and the DC logo was designed by Daniel Quasar. I figured they gave him the credit. Let's give him credit out there because that does look pretty neat.
I am really happy with it. Here's the funny part. This is the, I don't know if controversial issue is the right way to go, or this is the one that got all the buzz. We didn't deliberately set out to do this issue. It was more of, we wanted to do a Superman catch-up, and it just timing-wise wound up being...
perfect timing.
Yeah, who knew it was going to be this issue? Because this was announced so long ago that in a weird, because I got a little bit behind on my Superman books because of the focus of other topics we were doing on the show. I was playing catch up and I'm like, oh my gosh, we wound up doing this issue without even realizing it was a thing. And it was funny to read the story organically and get to that point and be kind of like, this was the controversy?
Yeah, I know.
And when I say controversy, it's funny. I had friends of mine who were talking about this and fell all over the place on it. Like they were having like this real open debate where some were like all for it, some were really against it, and some were like somewhere in the middle. None of them read the doggone comic.
Right.
And it was the point I made. I jumped in and I said, listen, guys, I said, one of two things needs to happen here. It's either you read the book and decide whether or not this is your cup of tea or if they did a good story or anything like that. I said, or don't weigh in at all. Because I said, in reality, I said, this is all about context. At first, they were like, one of them was getting mad because how do you do this with Superman? And it's like, well, no, this isn't Superman. First of all, it's his kid. Well, now they're just doing this because it's popular to do that. And I'm like, well, no, this character has zero relationship history. He really doesn't. I mean, there's been some hints of relationships that you would have with a kid that was growing up. Those were back when he was a little kid, when he was younger in that. And none of that led to what I would call a relationship. Whereas this hasn't quite done that yet either. This is the beginnings of a relationship, and I don't know that this defines him as bi or gay, or I don't know yet, because this is so new. But organically, here's the thing, the character that he's hanging with, I really like. Yeah. Like, they've really done a great job of building this storyline because we're only like 5 issues into this series, and it's a character who I knew nothing about beforehand. I'm talking about, the guy who's got this beginning of a relationship with Jay. And Jay is like this character with his own power set and seems to have like a journalistic, like a modern journalistic approach, where he looks, it's not Clark that he's interested in. He's interested in Lois Lane because of the fact that he's a journalist. And the fact that John's mom is Lois Lane, he's like a deer caught in the headlights with that. And there's this cool storyline that's coming out of this that I really, really like. But John's story is something that can't be ignored here because this book's about John. And what's great about John's story is we're seeing a very different Superman being formed here, who at the core, it's very clear he's Lois Lane and Clark Kent's son. And because of that, he's not reacting the way that his dad will all the time. In some ways, he's reacting the way that his mom would, an amalgamation of the two. And some of it has to do with his time with the Legion. Some of it has to do with his time with Jor-El. Like, everything that's been a part of his life experience is factoring into who he is now. And I love that this is a fresh take that, quite frankly, you can't do with Clark, but is so interesting with John. And that's what's making this work for me is we haven't shelved Clark. We aren't trying to make a new Clark. Clark is off doing his own thing, and we can have as many Clark stories as we want because unless they're crazy, they're not going to kill Clark.
Right.
John now has led this fresh new take that, wow, this is a blank slate. And this idea of the House of L and that has been a cool concept that's come out of, I think, the recent comic book runs. The idea that there is a Superman legacy out there. This bloodline continues on. And John is the first continuing on that bloodline of Superman going forward. I love this. This is really, really cool. Tom Taylor's doing a great job with this book. The artwork is fantastic. It's crisp and clean, and it feels very Superman, if I'm making any sense. You read the Shield era, where it was, the issues went into like a numeric order between the books.
Yeah.
Was some of your first exposure to Superman. And I felt like the art styling in that time had a lot of this kind of thing going on, if I'm making any sense. The books felt very Superman. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form insulting the art when I say that. I'm complimenting the art team in the sense there's a majesty to it, a bright, welcoming Superman nature to it. This feels like a Superman book, and there's something to be said for that. It's something I'm digging right now.
When there's times when I'm reading it, I am hearing dun 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 dun. He has these moments. For me, I am calling John Superman. I flat out, he's not Superboy anymore. He is 100% Superman. And I think that for me was something that really was a good crossover and a good feel in this series really gave him. When they first started doing Superman Son of Kal and stopped doing the Superman title, I'll be honest, I was thrown off a little bit. I was like, man, they should have just shifted it and having Superman title be John, Action Comics be Clark. And just keep running the title because, me and consistency and just the way collector mentality. I don't want breaks in my collection numbers and whatnot, all my other personal things. But by having it that designation, by having it that separation, they really did do a declaration that he is now Superman. This isn't a temporary thing that's going to shift back when Clark comes back on the scene. Because I don't want Clark gone. I still want Clark around. But this is a true declaration that, yes, John Kent is now Superman. And they've been doing that in this title. And this is an issue that I absolutely loved because it really does show John being Superman. Last issue, he has his first real dealings with a big bad who's not just something he can easily punch and be done with. It's going to take some planning. It's going to take some strategy. It's going to take some working for him to come up with a good battle plan to take out the bad guy. Because what's the bad guy doing? He sparked up his powers, made him supercharged. So now John has this issue where he's got all this superpowered energy, and he could easily snap someone's neck without even trying. Just by, flying too fast or doing halfway, just a pinky swap could, knock someone into next Tuesday. And I love how that's how the bad guy takes him down a notch by making him even more powerful. Because John needs to be able to focus and needs to be able to burn off some of this energy. And so what's John do? He's Superman. He goes through and he starts going through all across the world trying to save everyone. And I loved seeing that about John. I love seeing about, okay, I got to focus. And even as he's dealing with these different issues, like, I have to be careful. I'm too strong. Everything is too fragile. I could accidentally break him in half if I hold him too tight. And I love just the fact that John is thinking all these different stuff as he's going through saving all these different people. This, for me, was a great Superman moment and a great moment for John Kent.
I loved the moments with Wally. It's one of the great things where you've got like these legacy characters where I love Barry and I've loved Barry's stories. Right now we've shifted to Wally once again being the Flash. Him kind of understanding where John is at and that relationship starting to develop, I think is something that's going to be really cool. I want to see these two on the Justice League together so bad. Just because I think they would be a really great team together. As a kid growing up, I loved Superboy as much as I loved Superman, even though they were both Clark Kent. There was something to the kind of story you got when it was a Superboy story that was different than Superman. And I'm not saying John's Superboy. We graduated him to Superman, but there's still this idea of youth, a fresh look at today. And I really appreciate the approach of that with this character because we got Clark's epic story going on right now, which I'm gaga over, clearly gaga over. And you've got this going on, and I'm just as excited about this book in very different way. And I love the fact that this gives me that vibe that I got when I was a kid growing up and I was reading Clark Kent stories. Honestly, there were times when I liked the Superboy stories more as I would get them. Not because, that's not a knock on the quality of the work they were doing in the Superman book. It was just this idea of, this is him growing up. And this is me as a kid being able to read this and go, wow, this is cool to see Superman like when he was younger and kind of facing things that were more grounded, if that makes sense. So having him stay on Earth and having him be the Superman of Earth makes more sense because we're seeing Earth and seeing him handle today's contemporary situations with more of a lack of seasoning, a lack of experience. There's something to learning how to do things right, how to make mistakes, how to have a code. What is your code? What drives your code? And I really enjoyed that in this story as he was going forward. Just seeing those pieces and seeing him be a worldwide hero where he's not just staying put in Central City, he jumps from there to Luxembourg. I mean, and he's rescuing people from a car. I mean, I love that.
And I love the Luxembourg scene.
Yes.
Because the city was flooded and he had to save all these people. Just the way the art team did that, showing all the kind of like the, I don't want to say ghost images, but it's not, they did a little lighter color showing that he was zipping here, zipping, and just the way that full page spread, all the different people he's saving and putting on top of the roof. So, he put them on the different rooftops. You can see kind of the gathering of the different people. This was, for me, this was a great art moment where they really did show just how much he's doing. And the fact that earlier he does talk about how he's got to be careful that he doesn't crush these people. All these different people that he's handling, and not any of them are getting hurt. It's absolutely wonderful. And again, same thing you said with in Africa with the hostage, rescuing the hostages, and then going and rescuing the little girl in Costa Rica. I thought those were some great moments, just showing him all over the world being Superman.
Yeah, and that's something that's really important. It's funny when you talk about what was the story behind this issue. It's one of the areas where I'm kind of sad because you don't see the majority of the issue is really devoted towards him being a Superman of the world. And that wasn't the story that was being told. And it's funny, it was more focused on his sexuality. Like any superhero story, yes, that is an element of the character because these are three-dimensional living, breathing characters. But for this issue, oh my gosh, it is so not the focus of this issue. It organically leads to that, and I think it's cool the way that it does, but you're ignoring all these cool pieces that are also a part of that and not really representing what happened in the issue. And it's funny how I'm hoping that the buzz around this book translates into not only people picking up this issue, because I know it did. I know it did that component, but people actually giving the book a chance and reading the 4 issues that came before, maybe, and following it going forward, because it's a great title in and of itself. It's not just because of the fact that he happens to have a different sexuality to his father, and it's it's more of a contemporary look, and I think that's an important component to showing that this is a different character, and who knows where this character is going to go moving forward, and that's part of the fun of the journey, right? It's getting to know him more and who he is and his sense of discovery as a hero and as a person. I hope people actually keep following this book because it's really well written, incredible artwork. The Zambezi story, Zambezi, right? Am I saying that right? Okay. With the hostages. Him analyzing the situation, 3 hostages, 4 gunmen. And that's a piece Superman has to be very careful of. You have to use the X-ray vision to see what the status is because you do this wrong, people are fragile. They shoot one of them, just one of them. They're dead. I love the way that he analyzed first, then took charge, knowing what the situation is before leaping in. Because it'd be very easy for him to leap in, tear apart the vehicle without analyzing it first. using the X-ray vision, seeing the situation and planning a strategy, far better way to go about it. I loved the handling of that. I thought that was just a great, like, page after page of this had these unique sequences where you get to see him remind us that, like, this is why he's Superman now. He has had a lot of life experience leading up to this. And while it's not the same amount of experience his dad has had, this is not, he's not Superboy anymore. We know he's lived a long life, at this point. He's a teenager, but he's grown he's hit that point where he's grown into being a man and can take over for his father. And his dad was grooming him for this. And it was really cool to see that, like, start to pay off.
Yeah, and again, it's one of the things I did like about this is, as you said, it's John is well aware of what's going on around him. He's well aware, and he's still got to keep pushing and pushing. And when the powers again start fluctuating, I love that after he carries a whole bridge filled with multiple cars, multiple trucks, multiple transports, carries that, and he's recognizing, hey, this is getting heavier than it should be. I need to put it down. And then even then, his powers start fluctuating to the point where he goes down, he hits the ground with so much force that he's breaking the concrete around him. And he's like, back up. I don't want to hurt you accidentally. Even when he rescues the kid who's about to get creamed by a car, he hits him too hard. And he breaks the kid's arm just by the force of moving him out of the way from the car. I love those moments where he's really getting to the point, and right as the point where he's about to overload and completely blast, probably his heat vision. Who knows if he would have done a full-on explosion with power. That's when Arya shows up and says, Jay sent me. He's in trouble. And I love the fact that it was Jay who's been tracking all this stuff, seeing how John's powers are spiking too much, needs to get him away from people. Yep. And I thought that for me was a great moment, a great statement of these two, how well they work together. It's funny, when they first introduced the character, I was looking, I'm reading it, going, oh, cool, this is going to be probably like his version of Lois Lane. That's kind of neat how they're doing it. Not knowing that, yes, this will be his version of Lois Lane. So he's a character that when they introduced him first, they made him, an actual part of John's life and a part of, somebody that John can trust and work with and, just laid those groundworks. So this sequence here, with Jay taking him to his place, showing him all the stuff he's doing, getting him to calm down, relax, sleep. You need to get back in control. The last thing we want to do is you don't want to hurt anybody. How bad would it be if Superman accidentally incinerated a kindergartner? I love that line. I was like, yes, this is one of those cool moments that shows that level-headed thinking. And it's, why does Clark need Lois? Well, why does John need Jay? And I love start seeing those comparisons and start seeing, where Jay fits into John's life. Even before they have the big kiss, even before anything, you're seeing what he brings to the table. Why is he important in John? Why does John Kent need Jay? And I thought those were some of those moments leading up to this that really does show this is about who John is. This is about who the story is. It's not just let's do shock and awe. Let's surprise everybody. No, this is an actual story that's been building. This is something really cool that they're showing, hey, this is who he is. And I love that about this character. I love this about both characters. And I love the fact that also that Jay isn't just a carbon copy of Lois Lane. Right. He's got his own, strength, his own, skills, his own powers, his own abilities. So it's kind of a neat that they're taking, and he does have a lot of the Lois Lane qualities. And again, you could see why there would be a connection that John would have with Jay, because, we do have those connections, but he is his own character. He is his own individual. And I am looking forward to stories of John and Jay as much as I always look forward to stories of Lois and Clark.
Jay's also more today, in the sense that because he's younger, he's going to... Lois is his hero because of everything Lois has and continues to accomplish. But Jay is going to naturally approach it differently. That doesn't mean that you're putting Lois out to pasture. Lois addresses modern technology and modern ways of approaching things in the way that she operates today. But she isn't built from the ground up to be that person. She's adapting to that. Whereas this is his world. So he's naturally going to approach it differently. And actually, that adds so much validity to both characters, right? Because at this stage, we're kind of more in the Lois and Clark category. Whereas John and Jay are like the new generation coming up. And it's interesting reading them from that standpoint. Whereas a kid, when I read Superboy, I was reading Superboy and connecting with him more because it was more in line with my age. When, and actually was a little older, more like looking at like the reading a Big Brother versus the fact that now I'm looking at them and, boy, John and Jay are kids to us. And I like that. I like that idea of a new generation and following a new generation. They keep you young. It's part of, why do I love education? The kids keep you young. These kind of stories keep you young. It doesn't mean that you want the other ones gone. The other ones have it's a different spin, a different validity. Jay also has seen something else unique in the fact that he saw the failure of the initial attempt at a secret identity. He knows that was a disappointment for John. I can't help but wonder, and I hope that Jay is going to be a vehicle to maybe John being able to develop a secret identity, because part of this being spent is met by having a balance in your life. It'd be great to see. I mean, I know obviously there's things going wonky with his powers right now, don't get me wrong. But beyond that, they need a certain amount of time to be connected, right, to the world, to the people that they're rescuing and saving. And to be we know that that's part of Clark's upbringing that made him so strong, was the fact that he got to be Clark Kent. John needs that. There needs to be a way for John to have that kind of secret identity. And I'm curious to see if that gets developed in this book. If Jay can maybe help him make that less of a failure. It's going to be cool to see where this goes. Oh,
definitely. Definitely. And again, one of the things, I loved how they actually did handle the kiss.
I did too.
It was one of those moments where it kind of just, everything was quieter. Things started calming down. I love the fact that Jay put noise-canceling headphones on him to help him sleep. And he was out for 9 hours. And then afterwards, everything is just that calm. And you just had that one moment, that one kiss, and it was just that look the two of them gave each other. And then, oh no, I got to go. And even the fact that he's like, hey, it's not you, it's an armed robbery, and that's the Superman thing. He always got to run off. He has a job he has to do. But the moment that was really cool, again, they had that moment. They had the kiss. They had that look between the two of them. And then it's back to being Superman. But even then, he's like, I'll be back soon. They got to plot their plan against Bendix. And I thought that for me was again, that was a classic Lois and Clark moment of them working together. How do we take down the bad guy? And I love seeing these two together. This is going to be some neat stories that are coming out between them. And I want to see those kind of stories. I want to see how this plays out.
Yeah, that's been the part. Comics are supposed to, as a monthly serialized storytelling, supposed to build anticipation. Even trades, they do the same thing, though. It's page turners, right? You want to be drawn to the next part of the story. And hopefully in a trade, if it's an ongoing book, it will draw you into reading the next trade and continuing on that way. So whatever way you digest these comics, it's great. One of my favorite sequences was at the end, right? When he goes to fly off, he left the cape behind, but he goes to fly off and you see that dun-dun-dun moment where he flies out, and you see John have that moment. And I thought that sequence was so great because it was such a Superman moment where he's flying into the air. And that something was really cool for me. I like his costume now, by the way. John's costume is really cool.
Yes, definitely. And I'm a big fan of having the cape, but again, it was a neat moment, him leaving the cape there and, I'll come back. It's kind of like that whole thing. But even without the cape, he does look cool. I've always been a big fan of the big cape, but I'll be honest with you, again, modern look, change things up. I'd be okay if John
I don't think
the cape off.
Did you think that he was giving up the cape in that sequence, though? It was more he's coming back for the cape. It wasn't. I didn't take that as he's making the statement now that, I'm dropping the cape.
I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know about it. Because you think about it, back in Future State, he doesn't have a cape on.
But he says here, take this. I'll be back for it soon, I promise.
Yeah.
So why is he coming back for it? To what? Hanging in the closet at home?
I don't know. I don't know. Again, it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if he is actually gonna keep the cape. He may not. He may be without the cape, but he's coming back, obviously, with that. And it was one of those things where, here, I'm giving you this so you know I'll be coming back kind of moment.
It's not a make or break it for me, but I hope the cape's not optional. I mean, I don't mind it. I actually like the idea that he's able to fly off without the cape and kind of do the Superman thing. That's great. The costume, to me, works so well with the cape. Like, the sequence meant something. Like, I thought it was more of a, hey, this is proof I'm coming back.
Yeah,
then
100% could be.
Then I'm dropping the cape. I took it more as, this is just, hey, I'm not... Because, I don't know, to me, the design that I like with the costume is the way that the shoulders and the whole symbol flow into the cape. I just think that design is so spectacular. Dropping the cape, I'm going to say, I personally think dropping the cape would be a mistake. Because it's a good look. But I love this book. I really love this book. It's something that is interesting to me. Tom Taylor's just doing... They've got some writers at DC right now, and DC's and Marvel both, have enjoyed this over the years, where there have been, so many great writers that have come through, and it's really important that you have talented writers and you find ways to keep them. It's funny, recently I saw somebody make a comment about, making sure that there's work for so many of our legendary writers that are out there, and I couldn't agree more. I want to see them get work, because there are names that are established that are people that they have many more terrific stories to tell, and I want to read all of them. At the same time, I think there's a balance of keeping younger talent in the mix too, because you're adding more toys and tools into the toolbox. I think comics are at their best when you have a nice balance of legacy writers and new talent working together. I think there's always a mistake if you toss aside all of your legacy talent. I think there's room in the comic book medium, if we get the word out about how cool this medium is, for everybody. And I think it's really important to make this a medium that does that. So, Tom Taylor, it's funny to call Tom Taylor a newer writer because he's really been around for so long, but his name, I think, has grown in stature in recent years. And he's a writer. Everything he touches has just been really, really terrific. And this book's definitely on the top of my list as being one of those. Wow, this is a page turner. It's one of my favorite books going right now. I'm really enjoying this book. And it's funny, it didn't need it. Like, I want to say this carefully, because I don't mean it in the sense that it didn't need something to bring attention to it. And you mentioned it before. I love the way the scene was handled, because of the fact that I feel like it was just done organically, and it was like, cool. I mean, that, like, it was something that was clearly not done. You used to say it on the show.
Edgy to be edgy. Yeah. This 100% was not that. This was the natural evolution of the story.
Yes.
And that, I think, is the real thing I got out of this. And that's something that I absolutely loved about it. The fact that, this wasn't just we've got to do this kind of story. No, you don't. This is the natural. This is who John is. This is who Jay is. This is their story. And it's one of those things where it's not being forced. It's not being, it's just the story. And I love the fact that, how natural and normal this feels, how it flowed, how it just, again, the kiss. And then they had that moment where it was a beautiful artwork where they just had that look, and then bam, the world of Superman comes into play, and okay, I'll be back, and it's that kind of, very easy. It felt natural. It felt normal. It felt really good. And I was like, man, this is how you handle this kind of stuff. This is kind of cool. Yeah, it felt like you would any other relationship in the superhero world. And I thought that was really a good, strong choice, because it just shows that it's funny. I was so glad to see the book getting noticed, and I don't care if it was for this reason, because I feel like anything that draws attention to comics is a good thing. It was funny, the way that, I had friends of mine that were like getting charged up over this in both sides, of the quote unquote issue.
And I was sitting here like, seriously?
Yeah.
It was like, it was nuts. And I did bring up the point to them, and I'll end it on this. It's like, read the book. And I would say that to anybody listening to this, you can't make judgment on a tale if you haven't read it. Read the book. Otherwise, what are you getting mad about? Or what are you getting behind even? If you haven't read the book, read the book. And I hope that comes out of this. Because comic books need help. And so I'm glad to see it in the news. It was funny. It was funny having a debate over a comic book story that at that point I didn't even have a chance to read. And I said, guys, I love this book. I said, I haven't gotten to that issue yet, but I got to tell you, it's a terrific book, and I'm not sure what we're getting all crazy about. It was funny. I thought that was a good litmus test on how well the news stories were getting into people's heads, because I do think a significant amount of people probably picked up this issue who wouldn't have before because of that. And I hope that they actually read the story versus slabbing it and keeping it because they think it might be of value later, if that makes any sense. Because that's always the danger with speculators thinking this book might be worth something in the future, so let me just grab it for that reason. Well, in that case, I hope you grabbed two and you read one. Because this would be a story that would be one that would be a mistake to miss.
Now I can get out of here.
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our show email address if you prefer to contact us that way. Our website is RagingBullets.com. New episodes are always posted there and then feed out to Twitter and our Facebook fan page. We are proud to be part of an amazing Facebook group community, and I want to shout out Jeremy and just all the people that post there regularly. We've just got such a great cast of people that post about all of comics, pop culture, podcasts. It's really across all of, not just DC, but all of the comics and pop culture medium. And I go there first to get my news, just to see what people are talking about, and really appreciate that it's a safe and positive place to talk about all of this. So thank you to everybody for keeping that standard, because I think it's really critical today. The About Us section of our show website is where you're going to find out details about how to get to us on all of social media and gaming platforms. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
Well, we have a Superman Robin special one-shot written by Peter Tomasi, 40% off, only $3.59. And the Superman Son of Kal issue number 5 is now in a second printing, also 40% off, only $2.39. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com. As I mentioned, we're going to have the Batman by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo Omnibus hardcover as part of the new releases. It's $125 regularly, 45% off, only $68.75. Geiger, which was mentioned last episode, the trade paperback, Volume 1, $9.99 regularly, 42% off, only $5.79. That's Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, Brad Anderson. It's a great book. Definitely pick that up if you haven't. Sandman, the Deluxe Edition hardcover, book 4. $49.99 regularly, 45% off, only $27.49. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Our next episode, we're going to be back and talking about Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and we're also going to talk about Superman 78 as our Superman catch-up continues.
All right, you guys, are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging Bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim?
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it? What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think you're going to do it
Jim, how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's